Now, I've been seeing a lot of people asking how to get custom liveries onto their cars for MyTeam in F1 2020. And if you go on Race Department or Reddit, you'll see a lot of people asking for step-by-step tutorials, and they never quite get the answer that they need to get. It's always a link to some outdated YouTube video or something of the sort. It's almost like modders don't want to share this arcane knowledge that they have of how to do something that is so simple. So I'm going to do a simple step-by-step tutorial on how you can get a custom livery in your car in just a matter of minutes. It's really easy. First, you're going to need the PC version of F1 2020. It doesn't matter which version. It could be the Steam version or any other copy of the game that you have. Sorry, console players, this isn't going to work for you. Although I guess technically it'd be possible to remove the hard drive from your Xbox One or PS4 and connect it to your PC and then use the modding tools on it that way. But I don't know. And for the purposes of this tutorial, we're only going to be talking about the PC version. Secondly, you're going to need a photo imaging tool. Now, for this tutorial, I'll be using Photoshop from the Adobe Creative Cloud. I know a lot of you guys out there are using GIMP. GIMP is a powerful and free image editing tool, but it doesn't matter what image editor you use. It just needs to be able to do two things. It needs to be able to export to the Intel DDS texture format, and it needs to be able to open images that have a 3D model in it. It needs to be able to do those two things. Photoshop can open 3D model formats natively, and the Intel texture is done with a plugin that is also free. The link to that will be down in the description. GIMP may have its own plugins. I have no idea. Like I said, for purposes of the tutorial, we're going to be using Photoshop. So you also need a modding tool called the Ego ERP Archiver. This is a free modding tool that can open assets from any game made with the Ego engine. That includes F1 2020, F1 2019, and 2018. So that is a free tool. The link to that will be down in the description. And lastly, you will need to download a PSD file, a Photoshop file created by jburon72 on Race Department. This file actually has a 3D model attached to it and a livery that you can begin editing. So once you have all of those things and you have Ego Archiver installed, you are ready to go. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to open that 3D file. And when you open it, you're going to see a 3D view of the MyTeam 2020 car with a livery already applied to it. This is the 70th anniversary edition livery that comes in the game. So once you load this, if you have your transport tool selected, you can rotate it just like you would in any 3D editor. If you look down here, you can see all of your textures. You can remove the textures from it by clicking the eye. But what we want to do is we want to bring up the actual livery texture. So you're going to go down here, JB72 paint, and you're going to double click that, and it's going to open the texture in another tab here. Now, the thing is, you actually don't have to use this 3D model. However, it is highly recommended, especially if you're a beginner, mainly because any changes that you apply to this texture, it also applies those changes to the model in real time. So it's real easy to see placement of decals and things of the such without having to keep going back and forth into the game to make sure that you've placed it correctly. So once you've got this open, you can see here that there is a wireframe that shows you the actual outlines of the model. Now, if you tell it to show the wireframe layer, you can see where it outlines it in green, but that's not necessary. You can keep it here for the time being. So you have a few options. You can either edit this livery like you would in Photoshop normally by changing the colors using some object selection tools, or you can just create your own livery, which I think is what a lot of you want to do. So the first thing you need to be able to do is edit this, and you cannot edit it unless it is rasterized. So the easiest way to do that is simply pick a brush tool, click on it. You'll get this little prompt saying that it must be rasterized, and you're going to click OK. Now, once that's done, you can actually edit the texture using any method that you see fit. But what I find that it's easier to do if you want to start from a blank canvas is just to paint the whole thing white. So you're going to hit Control A, and then you're going to go to Edit. You're going to go to Fill. You're going to hit Color, and you're going to change the color to white, which is 6 Fs to make perfect white. Hit OK, and then bang. Now you've got a completely white base color, and you can still see the wireframe. So now if we go over to the 3D model and we give it a sec, we can see that it has changed to a completely white model. So let's say we want to make one half of the car or make the sides of the car black, let's say. So I find that the easiest way to do that and the fastest way is to use the polygon selection tool. You can use any selection tool, but it's easy to use the polygon selection tool and draw an outline around the object that you want to color. Now note that anything that is outside of this wireframe will not be displayed on the car. So that's why I'm giving a lot of space around the object. So once you've selected that, you're just simply going to do edit, fill. We're going to change the color to black, and then there it is. That side of the car is now black. If we go over and look at our model, then we can see in real time that that side is black. So let's go ahead. We'll make the other side a different color. Now, some of you that are more adept in Photoshop than I am might have better methods of doing this particular process here. I suggest you use those methods. I just find that this is really the fastest way. So let's make this color a nice shade of Charlotte Hornets purple. And if we go back to our model, then there we go. And let's do one more. So you can actually select multiple parts. So this top part here is the all of this is the intake. So let's make this intake carbon fiber, because who doesn't like carbon fiber? And as you noticed in the thumbnail for the video, my MyTeam car has a lot of carbon fiber in it. All right, so to do that, you need to download a carbon fiber texture, which you can find on Google anywhere. And then you need to create a pattern using that. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to create a pattern. You can find that tutorial anywhere. But let's say you have a carbon fiber pattern, like I do here under custom pattern. I'm going to use a brick fill. And then you can change these parameters to make it look as realistic as you want. So those are the ones, we'll just use those for now. And as we see, these are all carbon fiber. If we go to our model, then once again, oh, look at that. We get a nice carbon fiber texture. Now, it is important to note that in the game, it's going to apply like a glossy layer, like a clear coat over it. Now, there are some liveries that do have a matte finish, but from what I understand, no one has discovered how to create a matte finish in Photoshop for the game yet. So all right, so we've got colors, we've got carbon fiber. The last thing is, people are probably like, hey man, how do you get that cool Mercedes logo on the side? How do I add logos and decals? So when you create a custom livery, it's going to overwrite all of the in-game sponsor logos that are on your car, which is cool because nobody cares about those fake sponsors anyway. So you can either add real sponsors or create your own or whatever. To do that, I already have a Mercedes logo here that is nice and ready to go. So once you've selected the logo, you're just going to copy it. You're going to come back to your texture and you're going to paste it there. Ta-da! So once you've got it there, make sure you've got the correct layer selected. You're going to go to your transform tool and you're going to move it into place and scale it down to where you want it to be. So another thing to note, anything that is in these gaps between the wireframes will not be on the car. Meaning that if I wanted this logo to partially go up on the intake and then halfway down the side of the car, what's going to happen? It's going to delete this part that falls in between the gap here. So what you'd have to do is go back to your image and edit it so that it doesn't do that. So, but for purposes of this tutorial, we're not going to do that. We're just going to put it on the side of our car here. We're going to rotate it a little bit. That looks good. Make sure that you apply the transform before you click off of this tab to go check it in the 3D model. You can do that just by selecting any other tool and the transformation is applied. So if I go back here to the 3D model, we will see that it applied our Mercedes-Benz logo. If we want it on both sides, you simply duplicate, delete, duplicate that layer. Make sure transform selected. Move it up here, rotate it upside down. That's good for this tutorial. Click off of it and then go back and check the image. Now let's say you're good with this. This is what you want your livery to be for your MyTeam car. Here's what you need to do next. You're going to need to go to the Ego ERP archiver and you're going to open it. You're going to go to settings, game directory. Make sure this is set to wherever your F1 2020 installation folder is. If you have a Steam installation, it's going to be Steam, Steam Apps, Common, F1 2020. And you're going to open. Now, where you want to look, so this is the root folder of F1 2020. You want to go to 2020 asset groups. You're going to go to 2020 vehicle package. You're going to go to teams, and then you are going to select whatever engine supplier you have for your team. That's what you're going to pick. So I have a Mercedes engine in mind, so I'm going to pick MyTeam Mercedes. Under the web folder, you'll see where it says myteam_mercedes.erp. This is what you want to open. You see I've created a backup for this because any changes that I make that might not work, or I might want to revert back to the stock configuration, I've backed that up in this folder. But we're going to open this one, and then what you'll see is you will see all of the available assets that you can change. So those of you that don't like the default font on the number, you can change that here as well. And the liveries are down here. They are very nicely labeled for us, so we know which livery to choose. So I chose to use the default 70th anniversary livery, and this is the livery that I created for MyTeam that you see in the YouTube thumbnail. So it's important to note that you want to, now you don't have to export the texture that you are replacing. You can simply just import the texture that you want to use using the same file name as the one that you are replacing. The one that you want to replace is the one that has the _D at the end. This is the diffuse map. That is also the matte map. And then this is the one that you would use for any specular effect. So if we look at other ones, we see that some of them will have a specular or a matte for them. This one, for purposes of this tutorial, we're not going to use these. So it may be easier for you to use a livery that already has a blank one. I blanked this one out. But it may be easier for you to use a livery that already has a blank matte and a blank specular. So I would, if you're a beginner, I would go ahead and use a livery that already has it. So this is the livery that I want to replace. If you want to export this texture, you're going to go to textures, export, and then export it to a folder. I have a folder called F1 2020 modding. Create a new folder here. and you can save it here. So this is good that if you want to edit a pre-existing texture, you can simply export it out and then load that one into Photoshop here and work from that one. But if you want to import one that you've already created, what you need to do is make sure you have the texture that you want to replace selected. So once you have the texture selected that you want to replace, then we need to go back to Photoshop and save the texture that you created in the correct format. So you're going to go back to that texture. You're going to go to File, Save As, and then you're going to name it the same thing as whatever the texture you're replacing is named. Under Save as Type, you are going to select Intel TextureWorks DDS. As you see, there are different types of DDS. There's an NVIDIA, there's a regular DDS file. Make sure that you have the Intel TextureWorks plugin installed. This is the one that you are going to select. You're going to overwrite the one that you exported, or simply name it the same as the file that you want to replace. You're going to click Save. It's going to ask you if you want to replace it. Yes. And it's going to give you this. It's going to give you this dialog prompt here. You want to change it to color, and then compression. You want to change it to BC7 Fine. Bitmaps can either be from layers. I like to set it to auto generate. It really doesn't matter all that much. Once you have these selected, you're going to click OK. And now the texture is saved. So now you're going to go back to Ego Archiver. You're going to make sure you have the texture you want to replace selected. You're going to go to Textures, Import, and then you're going to find the one that you just created. Click Open. Now you should notice that the file name should be the same. Make sure you click Save. It's going to ask you if you want to replace it. You're going to hit Yes, and there it is. Once you've done that and you're happy that this is correct, you're going to hit File, Save, and then you're going to save the ERP that is your engine supplier's name. This is the one you always want to work from. Also, if you change your engine suppliers at any time during your team's My Career, then you're going to have to alter the files for the appropriate engine manufacturer that you switch to. Go ahead, hit Save. It's going to ask you if you want to replace it. You're going to hit Yes. All right. So once you've done all that, you can close all of your Photoshop windows. You can close Ego Archiver. Go open your game. Change the livery of your car on MyTeam to the livery that you just replaced in Ego Archiver. And now when you open up MyTeam, you will be treated to the livery that you just created. Now, it's important to note that you can actually also use this livery outside of MyTeam, but be sure that when you replace it in the Ego Archiver that you are replacing the livery that is in MyTeam. If you replace the livery that is not in MyTeam, like the common liveries, for instance, or in any other engine supplier archive, then what will happen is that you will see the livery outside of MyTeam, but then when you go into MyTeam, it will switch back to the original livery. So just make sure that you are doing that. Also, this same process can essentially be used for any texture in the game for the most part, and to include helmets, suits, whatever. So just use your imagination, and hopefully this gives you a pretty good baseline for creating your own liveries and textures and getting them into the game. So hopefully you found this tutorial very helpful. If you did, be sure to hit like and subscribe for more sim racing and F1 2020 content, and we'll see you next time.